Hello everybody, and this week I've been having a little bit of a tinker around with MGS5 Ground Zeroes. So can I please get an intro now? So, MGS5 Ground Zeroes. Easily the most torn, twisted and difficult review of a modern game I've had to do to date. And why is this exactly? Well, because I had to judge this epic amount of game here solely by giving everything into consideration. The fact that I have to judge this as a precursor to the Phantom Pain, as a whole game. And honestly, I've tried tackling this from every single conceivable angle, and in the end, I didn't even want to talk about this game. And don't get me wrong here, there is a lot to talk about with this game, a lot of good, awesome shit to talk about with this. But if it was a little bit cheaper, or it was a demo, that video would have been a complete blast. But this particular video has to be made with the ideology, with the fact that I have to judge it by its entire package as a game on the shelf in physical release, acting as a prelude to the Phantom Pain, and I don't want to talk about it like that. It breaks my heart a little bit. And what makes it even worse is that there is so much good shit to talk about with this game, so much. I mean, all you gotta do is watch Pro Jared's review of it. He covers all of it great. But then at the same time, the tragedy of it is that there is a fair amount wrong with this whole idea, as you can see from Angry Joe's review. So instead of going overboard in this whole review about the length of the game and the price of it and everything, because honestly, I don't know about you, I'm sick of hearing about that stuff. I want to tell you guys about the game in itself and then give my thoughts and opinions on the matter and then try and round everything up towards the end. Because, you know, the people out there that are judging this entire game basically just on the length and the price, no, that's not fair at all. So instead I'm going to try my absolute hardest to tackle this from an unbiased and, hopefully fair perspective, because I think there's a lot to talk about here, lots of interesting things to talk about, and I'm really curious as to what all of you guys think about this whole situation. In case you didn't know, MGS5 Ground Zeroes is set as a separate prologue to MGS5 The Phantom Pain, which is due to be released in, I think, a year or so, and this basically bridges the gap in the saga between Peace Walker and that game. And where this sounds like an excellent idea to show off everything this game can do and the engines and what we're expecting from the Phantom Pain, you know what? Yes, it was a great idea. But there were a lot of stupid things that were also done here and they really need addressing. But before we go into all of that truly heavy stuff that everyone seems to be talking about, what do I like about this game? Well, you know, nothing much really. Other than this game is really fucking good. This is an expertly crafted piece of superb, stealthy, MGS-styled, yet open-world gameplay, and I had so much fun with it, I can't even tell you. It features more or less everything you'd expect from an MGS-styled game in terms of the weapon types, the CQC combat, the excellent enemy AI, the mission styles, and the really fucking cool gadgets, and just the way that the whole game feels as a whole. I mean, at the same time, a few of the classic game mechanics, such as the cardboard boxes, have been taken out, and the wall knocking, and even like the rations. I mean, there's no survival parts of the game, but you know what, there weren't much survival bits of MGS4, so that doesn't really bother me too much, but there's no rations or anything like that either. So, well, that's this particular game anyway. Whether or not they're going to be in the Phantom Pain yet, and they're experimenting a little bit more with it, I don't know. Honestly, the more serious tone that this game gives off means that stuff like the cardboard boxes does seem a little bit out of place. But still, we have yet to see what this goes on, because I still think that that's a cool mechanic that they could implement into the game somehow, the final thing in the Phantom Pain anyway. But still, it makes up for all those little things that are missing by adding in some really fresh and solid, brilliant new game mechanics for MGS as a whole. As this is a taster to the Phantom Pain, the open world in this game is small. Pretty damn small. But somehow it does cram a lot into this small environment to try and get the most out of you as a player, and that's the first thing you'll notice about this game, especially for an MGS fan, and that is, despite the smallness of it, the open-endedness of it. Oh sure, during the 6 missions in all of this game, you will every so often get a solid destination and a solid goal, but that's only occasionally. More often than not, you're just plonked into the middle of this enemy stronghold with no idea what you're doing, so intuition plays a much larger part in this than in previous games. Maybe, like, bigger than MGS3 levels. You need to work out where you're going, how to approach different areas, find certain entrance points, scout out enemies and cameras, and then decide whether or not it's wise to knock them out or kill them, and when the best parts of the game it is to do that, and which vehicles to use at certain times in certain situations, and take the time of day into consideration and the weather conditions, decide who needs rescuing and where they can be rescued from, where you can escape your mission with the helicopter, where to put the helicopter. Oh my god, there are so many variables to consider here, and for me, I actually find this my most favourite way of playing MGS to date. And not to mention you get to use a little thing called the iDroid, which, by the way, is very fucking clever. Well done. And that basically scouts out all of your enemy terrains and all of that stuff to make you decide where the best place to approach is from. So the strategy is a lot higher with this game. It feels more free, it's really fun, and it's epically stealthy. But obviously, giving this whole new 360-degree style approach to the gameplay, you've got the ability to mark certain enemies with your binoculars or spotlights, or even just pointing your weapon at them. Marking means that no matter where they are on the map, as long as you've marked them, you can survey every single movement of them in real time at any point using your iDroid. Again, it adds so much more to the strategy, and it's a great mechanic, giving in mind that people can appear from all around you and you'd never even notice. And the fact that you can use the iDroid as a moving sat-nav as you're moving, like where you have to hold it out, you can't actually fight while you're doing it or anything, so that's a downside, but because you can do that, it makes things really, really tense and really, really fun. But occasionally you are going to make mistakes. There are a lot of bad guys here and they go anywhere. So when you do get caught by someone off guard, and you don't realise it anyway, the game enters what they call reflex mode. Now, what reflex mode is basically the whole game slows down to a crawl, and you get the chance by pressing the ready weapon button to click onto the person that spotted you, and then you can take him out, or like kill him or do anything in the last few seconds before the alarms are raised. This can be turned off if you are a little bit hardcore, or if you just don't like the whole idea and it makes things a bit too easy. I thought honestly it was an incredibly fun and challenging thing to use as well, because sometimes you've got the wrong gun equipped, or you're too slow, or you can't see where this enemy has spotted you from. It's really, really cool, and it's a great addition to the whole open-endedness of it. And honestly, I know people have complained about the controls for this game and how weird and different they are, but honestly, fucking love them. Easy to get the hang of, lots of shit to play with, and seriously, I felt that the way that Snake controlled himself was a fucking godsend. I mean, I could feel personally the true weight of Snake. I could feel every single step, and it just felt like he was actually there. Simply by moving him about, you can truly feel the true weight of your main character, and that's fantastic. It feels more grounded, realistic, and yet more responsive and fun to control than the last few games. Not saying that the last games weren't fun to control, because they were, but in terms of going up into the next gen and moving forward, this was definitely the right thing to do. And all of this together ultimately makes the sneaking and the CQC and the shooting much easier to get the hang of, and lots of fun. Which then in turn makes everything much more fast-paced and very addicting, and for an open-world MGS stealth game, that's quite difficult to pull off, and it's done it really well. Also, the 5 side missions that come along with the main story mission do a fantastic job of demonstrating the potentially different mission types in the Phantom Pain, such as helicopter bombing missions, finding and sniping missions by using facial recognition, all that good shit. Oh, and protecting missions, rescuing missions, hostage missions, all of that good stuff. It's really, really cool. And not to mention, it shows us the capabilities of everything that the Fox engine can do with the lighting and the weather and the play, like the different daytimes, rather not playtimes, daytimes, and there's not one single mission which isn't utterly joyous to play, because they're all just so different, and it's great. Also, the game looks absolutely astonishing. It's absolutely beautiful. I have no words for it at all. That's it. It might not look it from where I'm sitting right now, where you're sitting, because of all the YouTube compression stuff, but get it on the PS4, and that's, I mean, as far as I can see, that's the best way to play it, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It's a gorgeous game. The cinematics as well. Brilliant! Like all of the last games, they're lengthy, extremely detailed, done all through the game's engines, well written and dramatic as all fuck. And when I say that, I mean much more darker and grittier and more horrible than the last games. At least there was some kind of like sense of humour with all of those games and like a kind of lightheartedness to it, but this really does hit the drama really hard, and I honestly think it does a great job. So then whenever you see a slightly comedic line or a throwback to one of the classic games or a reference or anything, it makes it mean so much much more in this gritty and horrible universe, and it's great that somehow the combination of these two things actually work together. That's something I can't explain, you just have to play it to see what I mean. I mean, as an MGS fan, I'm actually really impressed with what this game has done for the series, and as a natural progression through the generations of consoles, this has more or less ticked every single box for me, minus a few of the things that weren't really there, and it's got it right all across the board. So basically, this was more or less everything that I was wanting to see with what they could do with MGS5 on the PS4. Great. But then, enough siding with all the fair people, because this is where my problems with the game begin to surface. I mean, I just talked about the cinematics and how great they were, but within those cinematics, where's the fucking story? There is none. There isn't any major story in the main story mission, and there isn't any story at all in the 5 side missions. Sure, in the main story mission it introduces you to the situation and the universe, and some of the characters, brief as they are, and it bridges the gap between Peace Walker and the Phantom Pain beautifully. But then looking back at this game, as a MGS story, there isn't any plot, there is none really, and there's no character development at all. Yes, even in the story mission, the MGS story mission lacks story. I mean, there is a little bit of plot, but it isn't really anything major that couldn't have been put in as to the beginning introduction to the Phantom Pain. All you do really is rescue 2 people that were in the Peace Walker. You only rescue 2 people that were in Peace Walker, and why they're in this stronghold in the first place and everything. It's very interesting and everything, but ultimately that's pretty much all that happens. You rescue these 2 people, and then it bridges the gap between this and the Phantom Pain. Great. And all that does is tell you how Snake ended up in hospital. So, you know what? There isn't really anything to spoil here, really, and it's not that great. I mean, sure, the lore to this and the effort that's gone into all of the Walkman cassette tapes and all of the backstories that you can read up on and all of the secret things you can listen to, all the tapes and everything, it's really fucking good, and it adds a lot to the universe, but ultimately, it doesn't really add to anything other than a build-up. And because of this really simple problem, it then makes you question the point of what you're doing. It makes you wonder why you've justified spending the money on this and getting what you did from it due to the length of it. The gameplay is great, sure thing, I can completely agree with it. You just saw me at the beginning of this video rambling about it. And even though I beat the main missions and all of the other side missions in altogether about 4.5 hours, and honestly, that doesn't bother me at all. That doesn't bother me. Yes, I'm one of the first people to say that. That doesn't bother me. Because the game is really fucking greatly designed and really fun. But the problem is for MGS not to focus the story. That's part of the reason I buy MGS games, for the story. But this just made me come out giving everything into consideration with the side missions and the main story mission and everything. This small thing, which probably didn't bother anybody, probably didn't bother most people. I mean, I've seen 9s out of 10s on the internet and stuff like that, so it probably didn't bother most people. But seeing this lack of depth to the plot then made me think. I stepped back and I said to myself, given everything into consideration, and then I just said, fuck. This is just a tech demo, isn't it? And that's when things kind of hit me in the face. I mean, sure, there are tons of options to fiddle with, loads of difficulty settings, replayability to all of these missions, finding all of the ZOF badges, or XOF, I don't really know how we're saying this right now, and all of that stuff. But what is the point of it all, really? Apart from getting trophies and getting better at the game's mechanics ready for the Phantom Pain, there is none. There's no reward at all for doing any of this stuff. I mean, sure, you can argue that you unlock the special 6th mission that's hidden from all of the other ones, which on the PS4 is really fucking cool, but regardless. And also you unlock different guns to use on the same missions, but in terms of an actual proper fulfillment and reward, there isn't anything as far as an MGS standard goes. This could have easily been an intro to the Phantom Pain. It could have easily been it. I mean, look at the fucking tanker chapter in MGS2. It could have been that, guys. Or it could have been hidden as a sneak preview in another Konami game. It could have been done like that. Look, Kojima, I understand totally, I get it. You want to show off everything that you can do and everything that you're working up to with the Phantom Pain, and honestly, I get it. You want to get everyone excited, because a year away for the Phantom Pain is a long time, and you know what? You've got me excited. This has hooked me. This is fantastic. It has hooked me. And not to mention there are other games that have done the prologue thing before, such as Gran Turismo 5 prologue, and that was fucking awesome. So I see what you're getting at, but Here, the price just doesn't reflect the substance at all. Unlike GT5 Prologue, it doesn't feel as though it's really squeezing everything out of you that it should be for a Prologue game. And it doesn't feel like the grand spectacle of a showcase that game was. I know you can't really compare the two. One's a fucking racing game and then one's a Metal Gear Solid, but the point still remains. It's about engaging and keeping your audience in a fixed part of getting everything that they can out of your prologue, and this is a game that can be beaten, well, okay, everyone's saying, oh, the whole game can be beaten in 6 minutes. No, it fucking can't. The story mission can. The whole game as itself can take hours upon hours and upon hours to beat if you take your time with it, but getting through the main story mission, which is what ultimately is building up to the Phantom Pain, it doesn't force you into a situation where you can't actually speedrun it that easily. Make the main story mission alone as a separate download, as a demo, or, like, I don't know, release that at a smaller price and then have every other optional mission at a smaller price? You know what? That would have been fucking awesome. But because it is entirely possible to beat all of these missions in about half an hour altogether, it's entirely possible to do that. Maybe even less than that. Because of that, it doesn't do the GT5 Prologue squeeze. That's where the open-endedness of it pulls this game back. And then when you have no major story elements that draw you in really, you know what I mean? It just doesn't force your players into an environment where they have to experience the beauty of what you've crafted, and it's a real shame. Especially when the plot and the point of this whole package ceases to be there, really. It just makes you wonder the point of why this is a separate release at the price that it is. And especially when you can beat the main story mission, which most people had bought this game for first in the fucking first place, are beating it in 6 minutes. It's not great. And because this has been promoted and advertised and stuck on the shelf as a physical copy and everything as a retail release, even though I don't want to, I have to judge this game by that fact. And even though this is miles cheaper and tons more fun than most next-gen games out there, it still needs the substance, especially for what MGS fans are expecting to get when they pay for it. And this is where the conflict and my internal struggle started to kick in about when I was trying to rate this game and talk about it. This is probably going to be my longest tinker time, and it doesn't surprise me because the confliction and my internal struggle with this game was pretty huge, and that's because of one word: perspective. I don't know what game prices are like in the US to a full T, but I can tell you definitely that I got that game that I threw over there in the beginning of this video for £22.99. Okay, with that in mind, I got Thief on PS4 a couple of months back, or a couple of weeks back, whenever it was. I got that for £52.99. And you know what? I had tons more fun and enjoyment out of Ground Zeroes than I did for paying nearly twice as much for Thief. And you know what? I've paid for games that are half the cost of Ground Zeroes that are actually half the length of Ground Zeroes as well. So that makes, like, sense. I don't know, like, The Last of Us Left Behind. I mean, sure, the story elements were tons better, and it forced your player into a situation where you couldn't actually properly, like, speedrun it as easily as you could with Ground Zeroes. It still doesn't escape the fact that I beat Left Behind in about an hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours, and I paid half the cost of something that I beat in about 4.5 hours altogether. And that's what I'm saying, it's a perspective thing. That's what I did, that's what I personally did, which is why this game is so fucking hard to judge. I beat this whole package in 4.5 hours, but some people are beating every single mission combined time in less than half an hour. It's all about the perspective, and it's really messed with my mind while thinking about reviewing this game. But as far as I'm concerned, at least, where I completely disagree with this being the notion of this being a standalone game in itself, and Kojima deciding to make the move of making the initial price tag for it, I mean, thank fuck it got a decrease. Just the notion that that was the original idea, that I completely disagree with, and maybe that's why some people are being harsh with it. That's fair enough. But I do feel as though some criticisms towards the entire game as a whole, like every single bit of it. Oh, and by the way, I didn't even mind Kiefer Sutherland that much, honestly. I liked him. I thought he did a good job. He sounded a bit too young every so often, but you know what? He did alright. I think he will do good in the Phantom Pain, and hopefully that means that David Hayter will be a young Snake in the Phantom Pain as well. Let's just hope so. Anyway, where was I? I'm rambling. Yeah, that's it. Sorry, yeah. The fact that people are judging this whole fucking game, the gameplay and the environments and the beauty of it and everything about it, they're judging the whole of it based on the price and the fact that some people are speedrunning the main story mission alone in 6 minutes, you know what? You're being far too fucking unfair with it, and you've missed out bliss of a game here, even if it is the length that it is and the price that it is. But after a tinker around with MGS5 Ground Zeroes, I will have to say that this game is acceptable. And when I say that, I mean I'm pretty much bang dot in the middle between Pro Jared and Angry Joe. Even though the story mission itself, plus the 5 other side missions, after I replayed all of them as well, gave me about 6 hours plus overall with this package, and even though the gameplay alone is fucking awesome, and even though all of these missions combined demonstrate the true power and elegance of the Fox engine with the weather and the daytimes and the mission types and all of like the different weighty, like all the physics stuff and all of that stuff, all of it, at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's a demonstration. It's fucking beautifully made, and it's made with the same care and heart that it has been for the other MGS games, and for that length, you know what, you can see that, and it's impressive that they managed to do that, but honestly, it adds nothing to the lore of MGS majorly, and there are a few core things that are missing from it, and it could have easily been an intro to the Phantom Pain, skipping, like, scratching the other 5 side missions. I mean, they are cool, but they could have been DLC extra missions. I mean, you know what I mean? And it could have been a lot cheaper as a whole. But you know what? Even though I don't recommend you guys spending the money on this game, I will personally say I don't feel ripped off. I do not regret buying this a single bit. Because even though I paid for the privilege of it, this is still one of the best fucking prologues / demonstrations of anything I have played. One of the best, easily. And has it built the hype for the Phantom Pain for me? Fucking yes it has, and that's what this game has set out to do. It's building the hype up, and after this I am convinced, and everyone that has played it after me, Rosie included, they're convinced that the Phantom Pain will be one of the best games they've ever played. I'm certainly sure about that. This has given me enough hope to get me to believe that the Phantom Pain will be fucking unbelievable, and I just wish, I wish this was part of the whole of the game, because that would have been just fucking perfect. That would have been the best game ever. It should have been part of the Phantom Pain. So all in all, the fact that this was a separate experience from the Phantom Pain, promoted on its own as a AAA title at the price it was from not even an indie game company, and all of that stuff considered that I've just rambled about, just doesn't smack you in the face with the impact, power and majesty that it deserves to. And there we go. I think that's good enough. I hope I haven't upset anyone or confused anyone. This was a fucking hard thing to script, so apologies if I go over myself and I trip over my own words or anything like that. This was fucking hard to do. Farewell everybody, and until next time, take care.
Hello everybody, and thanks very much for sticking through every single minute of that video. It was very long and very rambly, I'm very sorry. But I just wanted to ask you, do you want to see what games I've been playing recently, what games I'm buying and picking up and putting on my shelves right now, and what games I might review in the future? And do you want a quick and simple website service to go straight to a certain website and buy them straight from my collection? Well, if you do, head on down in the description to gamesgrabber.com, a brand new gaming social site that allows you to see everything, including my video equipment that I use in all my videos. All of it, it's there on that collection on the internet in the description, so go and have a look at that and you won't regret it at all. Also, if you enjoyed this video, then please don't forget to leave a little like and subscribe if you want to see more of my stuff, because I make stuff every single Sunday. Also, Facebook, Twitter and Twitch and everything is in the description, so we're gonna have a look at that shit. And if it's your birthday today watching this video, then happy freaking birthday to you, and please remember to stay beautiful.